The biologists thought their traps were broken. Year after year on San Miguel Island, the little fox the size of a house cat had been everywhere, trotting across the grasslands in broad daylight, unafraid of anything. Then, the counts started coming back wrong. Almost empty. They reset the cages, walked the same trails, checked the same canyons, and in roughly 4 years, an island that had held nearly 1,800 foxes was down to 15. 15 animals left of an entire kind of creature. The same collapse was unfolding on Santa Rosa next door. 450 foxes crashing to 15, and nobody could say out loud yet what was hunting them from the sky. To understand how strange that emptiness was, you have to understand what these islands used to be. The Channel Islands sit off the coast of Southern California, close enough to see from the mainland on a clear day, but cut off long enough that life there became its own world. The island fox arrived more than 18,000 years ago, drifting over on storm debris, and over the centuries it shrank. It became the smallest wild dog in North America, 4 to 5 pounds, lighter than most house cats, and the largest land animal the islands had. With no wolves, no coyotes, nothing to fear, it simply stopped being afraid. It hunted beetles and mice and deer mice in the daylight. It walked up to people. For thousands of years, it was the top predator of its own little continent, and that fearlessness was its whole personality. But that same trust was about to become the thing that nearly killed every last one of them. The first domino fell decades earlier, and it is one this channel has already told in full, so we will touch it once and move on. The pesticide DDT poisoned the waters around these islands and wiped out the resident bald eagles that had fished these shores for generations. Those bald eagles were territorial. They ate fish, not foxes, and they guarded the skies and kept other big raptors out. When they vanished, they left an empty throne above the islands, and nature does not leave a throne empty for long. What moved in was a different bird entirely. Golden eagles, which had never bred on these islands in recorded history, started crossing the channel from the mainland. Golden eagles are not fishers. They are mammal hunters, built to kill things that run on the ground. They arrived to find an island full of slow, trusting daylight foxes that had no idea what a shadow from above even meant. To a fox that had never needed a fear response, the golden eagle was not a predator. It was just a shape in the sky. Therefore, the killing was almost effortless. But a handful of wandering eagles could never have done this much damage on their own. Something had to feed them. Something had to hold them there year-round. And that something had been put on the islands by people. The fuel was pigs. Ranchers had brought hogs to Santa Cruz Island long before, and over the years they went feral and bred into the thousands. Every spring, those pigs threw litters of piglets, and piglets are exactly the kind of easy meat that lets a golden eagle settle down, build a nest, and raise its own young. The pigs turned a few visiting eagles into a permanent breeding population. And once the eagles were established and hungry, the foxes became a side dish on the same menu. Scientists have a cold word for this. They call it hyperpredation, where one abundant prey species props up a predator that then drives a second rarer species toward extinction. The foxes were the rare species. And here is the part that still unsettles me. Not one link in that chain was natural. The DDT was ours. The pigs were ours. The empty sky was ours. The eagles just walked through the door we left open. Between 1994 and the year 2000, the fox populations on San Miguel and Santa Cruz fell by more than 90%. Santa Cruz dropped from around 1,300 animals to as few as 50. San Miguel and Santa Rosa each bottomed out near 15. Think about that number for a second. 15. You could fit every surviving fox of an entire island in the back of a single truck. A species that had owned its world for 18,000 years was 4 bad years from gone. But the foxes had a second enemy too, and it struck on a completely different island in a completely different way. Across the channel on Santa Catalina, the foxes were not being eaten. They were getting sick. In 1999, a stowaway raccoon is believed to have crossed to Catalina by boat from the mainland, carrying canine distemper, a virus that tears through dog family animals with almost no mercy. A single infected fox was enough. The disease moved across the eastern end of the island like fire through dry grass. Within about a year, it had killed off the foxes across the part of Catalina that made up most of the island, wiping out roughly 90% of that population. Catalina went from around 1,300 foxes to barely over 100. Same animal, same trusting nature, two separate disasters closing in at once. So picture what the people trying to save these foxes were facing. On the northern islands, foxes were being plucked from the ground by eagles that had no reason to stop. On Catalina, they were dropping from a virus that could not be reasoned with. And the total number of island foxes left alive on Earth had fallen below 1,500. This is the moment the story turns, and it turns on a single decision. Instead of fixing one broken link, they decided to fix every link at once. It started with the hardest call. To buy time, biologists pulled the last wild foxes off the open ground and into protected captive breeding pens on the islands themselves, on San Miguel, Santa Rosa, Santa Cruz, and Catalina. It feels almost backwards, locking up the last members of a dying species. But out in the open, they were just food. Behind the fence, they could breed. The National Park Service, the Nature Conservancy, and the Institute for Wildlife Studies ran the pens, and slowly, the litters started coming. On Santa Cruz alone, the program produced dozens of pups across 6 seasons. But pups in a pen mean nothing if the sky still kills them the moment you open the gate. Therefore, the next link was the eagles themselves, and the team made a choice that says a lot about them. They did not shoot the golden eagles. They caught them alive, one by one, and flew them hundreds of miles to the mainland, releasing them in suitable country in Northern California. Some of them released as far as 500 miles away from the islands. Between 1999 and 2006, 44 golden eagles were live captured and removed. Every eagle that left was one less shadow over the grass. And catching eagles was not enough either, because an empty sky just invites the next golden eagle to try its luck. So they refilled the throne with the rightful king. Cruz reintroduced bald eagles to the islands, hacking young birds into the wild, until around 61 were re-established over the years. The bald eagles took back the territory, ate their fish, and made the islands hostile to golden eagles all over again. The same competition that had once protected the foxes was switched back on purpose, by people. But none of it would hold as long as the pigs kept feeding the problem. Which brings us to the most controversial link of all. To starve out any eagle that came back, the food base had to go, and that meant removing every feral pig on Santa Cruz Island. The Park Service and the Nature Conservancy hired a New Zealand company called ProHunt, fenced the island into zones, and went after the pigs with helicopters, trap corrals, and tracking dogs. Between April of 2005 and July of 2006, they removed 5,036 pigs. The last known pig was killed on the 5th of July, 2006. It was brutal, it drew protests, and it worked. With the pigs gone, the islands could no longer support a golden eagle population, and the trap that had been built link by link finally came apart. On Catalina, where the killer was a virus and not a bird, the answer was a needle. Biologists began trapping foxes by the hundreds every fall, giving them health exams and vaccinating them against canine distemper and rabies before releasing them right back where they were caught. They turned the island into a place where the virus could not catch fire again. Different island, different villain, same stubborn refusal to let the fox lose. Here is the moral knot at the center of all this, and I genuinely go back and forth on it. To save the trusting little fox, people had to make a long list of cold-blooded decisions about other animals. 5,000 pigs killed, 44 eagles uprooted from the only home they knew and shipped across the state. The golden eagle did nothing wrong. It simply took the opening we created, and for that it lost its territory. So is it fair to wreck one wildlife to rebuild another that we ourselves knocked down? Or is the only honest answer that once we break a place, we owe it everything it takes to put it back, no matter how ugly the bill gets? I do not think there is a clean answer, and I would rather you tell me what you think than pretend I have it figured out. What I can tell you is what the numbers did next. And this is where the timeline turns from horror into something almost unbelievable. On the 3rd of March, 2004, 4 of the fox subspecies were officially listed as endangered, with fewer than 1,500 animals left across all the islands. Now hold that date in your mind, because just 12 years later, on the 11th of August, 2016, the United States government announced that 3 of those subspecies, San Miguel, Santa Rosa, and Santa Cruz, were fully recovered and removed from the endangered species list, with Catalina upgraded from endangered to threatened. San Miguel had climbed back to around 700 foxes, Santa Rosa to around 1,200, Santa Cruz to around 2,100, Catalina to roughly 1,800. From 15 survivors on a single island to thousands across the chain, that 12-year sprint made the island fox the fastest recovery of any mammal ever listed under the Endangered Species Act in the United States. Faster than any other. And every captive fox was eventually returned to the wild. The breeding pens shut down until there was not a single island fox left in captivity anywhere. They were all home. Think back to those biologists on San Miguel, resetting traps they were sure were broken, counting their way down to 15. They were standing at the bottom of a collapse that people had built without ever meaning to, a chain reaction that ran from a banned pesticide to feral pigs to eagles to an empty island. What they proved on the way back up is the part that endures. A near extinction does not have to be permanent if you are willing to find every broken link and fix it, even the links you hate touching. The island fox is not a story about one lucky animal. It is the clearest proof we have that the fastest way to save something is to take responsibility for every domino you knocked over, and then go pick them all back up. Now, I want to hear from you. If you had been in charge, would you have made the same hard calls to bring this fox back? Or is that a line you would not cross? Tell me in the comments.